Hey guys, I'm out here today representing Sawn Outdoors and Beginners Luck European Mounts. Today I have a domesticated goat head. My buddies found it up while shed hunting. We figured it probably just got out and went up in the hills and it died. And so I told my buddy a few tricks about how to European mount it. And one of the things I told him is do not use Clorox bleach. Clorox bleach weakens the skull, especially on deadheads. Deadheads are usually already pretty weak, and then if you use Clorox bleach, it'll make holes in it sometimes, and it'll make them just super weak. And so he used Clorox bleach because it's the only thing he had, even after I told him not to. And so this is what happens. So we got a big old hole in that side of the face and a big old hole in that side of the face, and it is just super fragile, and it's actually hardened up quite a bit. That's because one of the first things that I tell people to do if they have a weak skull is to put polyurethane on it. Polyurethane is a type of lacquer used for wood. It gives it a nice clean finish, and you can use it on skulls sometimes to harden stuff up. It'll get inside cracks and harden everything up, and for the most part it works pretty good. But so he did that, and it's pretty hard now. It's hardened up quite a bit, but now we got to fix holes. And so I'm going to teach you today how to fix up your old skulls and get them looking as good as new. First thing you're going to need is Bondo. Now this is just car filler Bondo. You can get it at Home Depot. It'll probably run you like close to $10 for a small one. Now this is a pretty large one, but you can get a smaller one for pretty cheap, and it will do plenty for you. So we're going to start off, and we're going to fill all of these holes with the Bondo. And they don't need to look too pretty. Make them look good, but they don't need to look perfect, because we're going to go through and we're going to sand them off and make them look good later. Hey, also here I have that same skull that I was working on yesterday that I put all the Bondo on. I let it sit for about 24 hours, and now all we're going to do is we're going to sand that off. Try to not sand the skull at all, just try to get that looking how it should. And so just sand it down, and get it looking as close to as what it should look like as you can. There's a good chance you might have some little air pockets in there and stuff that happen. And so there's a good chance you're going to have to put another coat on it later. But just do a good sand on it and get it flush, get it looking like the skull should look. So now we're going to Okay, so here I have it. I just sanded it off for the first time. You can still see that there's still a little bit of holes I'm probably going to want to fix. I'm probably going to end up filling in this gap. And there's another hole right here, one right here. But, I mean, don't look too bad for the first layer. So we're going to throw another layer on it, let it sit overnight again. We'll sand her again tomorrow. Alright, so here we are after the second layer. You can see that I put a whole bunch more on there. I filled in the gaps up here. I filled in, there was a couple holes back here in the eye sockets. I filled in. And I actually had a horn that came off. And so I'll teach you how to put those back on too. So all we're going to do is we're going to sand this off one more time. See how it comes out. Might have to put one more layer on. But hopefully it comes out good and we'll be able to paint it. Alright. Okay, so here's that skull after I've sanded it again after the second coating. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's still a little Little spot right there. It's going to need some putty. Little spot right there. There's a little couple more holes right here I gotta fill still. And so as you go, you'll just get closer and closer and closer the more layers you put on until eventually you get everything filled in and it sticks. Hey guys, so here's that skull. I ended up doing 3 layers of the Bondo and sanding it down. And you just want to keep doing that. Just put a layer of Bondo, sand it, put a layer of Bondo, sand it, put a layer of Bondo, sand it. Just keep doing that until you get the shape you want. I still got a couple little indents, a couple little pinholes, stuff like that. But we're just going to paint it, and then we're going to sand it again, paint it, sand it, paint it, sand it. You know, same thing until you get a good, nice, clean texture on there. And so all I did, I wrapped the horns in plastic wrap, put some tape around them. Pretty simple stuff. So we're just going to shoot a layer of paint on it, and then we're going to let it sit, and then we'll probably sand it, and then shoot it again, and just keep doing that until it looks good. So, there you go. Okay, so here's that skull. It's after 1 coat of paint, and I took 100 grit sandpaper and just lightly sanded it. Just tried to get all the run marks out of it because I coated it on pretty heavy with the paint. And so all I'm going to do now is do one more light layer of paint, and I'm going to take, it's kind of like a mini ice pick, and I'm going to try to remake the lines that go right there, the natural lines. So what you should do, you need to find a skull or pictures of skulls similar to the one that you have done, and try to make them look as normal as possible, because with this one I had to fill everything in right here, and so there's normally a crack that runs from right here all the way down to here. So I'm going to try to remake that as well as I can with this little ice pick. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to scratch it. Just scratch it and scratch it until you got your line. And I mean, you don't have to do that, but that's just what I like to do. That's personal preference. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And so, I mean, overall it looks really good. There's a couple things that, like those lines, and but overall it looks pretty good. I'll probably throw one more layer of paint on it, and I'll probably call it good. Alright, so with this skull, now that we have it all painted, looking good and everything, as you can see, I kind of tried to scratch those cracks back in there as well as I could. You just want to make it look realistic and not super smooth. You can put texture on it. You could use a sponge with your paint, put texture on it that way. You could use a brush and dab the brush on it for texture. I'm not too worried about it though because of the location of it. It's on the side face, which really doesn't have a lot of texture anyways, so I'm not too worried about it. But I'm going to show you how to glue your teeth back in. So you can tell that this skull is really weak. I mean, there just went a piece of the tooth right there. And so what we're going to do is we are going to soak these teeth inside, around all the edges. I just use crazy glue. You can use the gel. The gel kind of works pretty good. This brush kind of works alright too. I prefer the gel. This is just what I had. So you want to get it down in the cracks along the side of the teeth. You want to get it inside the teeth also, especially if it's a deadhead. Deadheads don't seem to hold up very well on their teeth, and so you just want to get it everywhere. Alright guys, so all I did, I just went outside and I spray painted a lot of paint on this piece of cardboard right here. And what we're going to use that for, just get you a little brush, we're just going to use it to paint in those yellow marks underneath the horns from where we had it glued. Just try to not get it on the horns. That way it's all one color. I usually do not paint my skulls, but when you're doing a repair on a skull like this, you don't really have any other choice. So, there you go. Hey guys, so I'm going to teach you how to put that horn back on there. If you don't remember, I had one horn fall off in the process. And you want to take those off and clean underneath them anyways. The kid that tried to European mount this before me did take them off and did clean under them. I guess he just forgot to glue one back on. The other three are on there pretty good. So I'm just mixing up just a little bit of Bondo. I just use a screwdriver most of the time when I do it. Either a screwdriver or popsicle sticks work the best. Screwdriver, just make sure to wipe it off before it hardens up, and your screwdriver will be fine. And so we're not going to use a lot of Bondo because we only got one horn. And so you're just going to want to put a little bit of hardener on there. Not a lot. That stuff hardens up quick. Just mix it around with that. I honestly probably have too much Bondo, but you're just going to take that horn. You want to put a little bit, mostly on the tips, because when you press it on, it'll press down. Alright, there's probably plenty. And you're just going to press it on there as hard as you can. Make sure it's on there good. Let it sit. Let it sit for probably an hour, and it'll be on there solid. Okay, so I got one mistake. You can probably see it right there. Just a little bit of paint on there. Just gonna use some sandpaper. Use the corner of the sandpaper and get in there and just might take you a little bit, but don't press too hard. You don't want to damage the horn. You just want to take that little bit of white off there. So just do that, and any other marks you got, do that, get it off, get the horns looking clean, and get everything cleaned up how you want it, and I'll show you the finishing touch, and then we'll be done. Alright, so here we have the skull. I've let everything dry. I cleaned up all the paint off the horns as well as I could, and I'm happy with the way it's looking. And so we're going to do the last finishing touch, which is Mop and Glo. I just put a little bit in a bowl, paintbrush, and the difference, so with horned animals such as goats and sheep, I Mop and Glo everything. I Mop and Glo the horns, everything. Makes it look so much better. But with animals that have antlers, such as deer and elk, all you're going to do is just the skull. You don't want to touch the antlers. So that's the only difference we're going to do with this one compared to as if you were doing a deer. And all the Mop and Glo does, it shines it up. It smells good, so you don't have any weird death smell on there. Because especially if you're doing a dead head, some of those dead heads reek. And so this will get rid of that smell. It gives it a nice shiny finish, but not not too shiny, and it looks really good. Makes everything look better. Just after you've mop and glowed everything, set it out, let it dry for a while. If you put a lot of Mop and Glo, it could take up to an hour probably to fully dry. So I would just give it an hour, let it dry, and then you're done. And you have your finished product. I hope you like it. I hope you learned something new. I hope we could help you out. And just remember to like our page on Instagram and Facebook. We have two separate pages. One is Beginner's Luck European Mounts, and another is Sawn Outdoors, spelled S-A-H-N. So check us out, like our page, and I hope you learned something new.